The mics are on. Okay. Well, welcome to this warm July day. This is our July board meeting. This is my first board meeting as board chair. I want to welcome everyone. I was hoping this room may be a little more air conditioned, but we'll work on it as we go along, I hope. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. I would also like to welcome some new board members. I know we just kicked off with a new board orientation. I know this is an exciting time of year with new faces joining this board, and I just really want to thank everyone for volunteering and running this year to join. Do you want to just take a moment to do an introduction, maybe say who you are and what town you're from? I'll start to my left. Annika, do you want to start?
Sure. Annika Hole, Cumberland.
Great.
Tim Valenti, North Yarmouth.
Great.
Megan Lichter, Cumberland.
Thanks, everyone. We have one student, Sophia, who will be joining. She's out July, which a lot of students should be. Thank you, Tommy, for coming in July. So we welcome her to the board, and we have an open position right now that's working to be filled in Cumberland that should hopefully be joining for our August meeting, which is our board retreat. So thank you. Today's agenda, which is up on screens, we have done our call to order. We don't have recognition in our July meeting. And then we move to approval of minutes. So we will start our agenda there.
I move that we approve our meeting minutes from June 20th, 2023.
I'll second.
I just ask that we approve our board meeting minutes from June 20th, 2023.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Great. Any discussion? I had a question just about just some of the vote counts, just to confirm if people didn't, I'm trying to remember what Vanessa, her vote, how that got counted.
So
in the minutes.
If she didn't vote, I believe she abstained from the vote, so we did not count her in the vote.
Okay.
Yeah. We usually list members who have abstained, so I just want to make sure. Yes, I'm sorry about that. Having some tech issues, I guess, right now. So for minutes, if somebody has abstained, we usually note the abstention in the minutes. So I just want to make sure that was done.
I think that was my only question. I don't know if anyone else had questions.
Which one were you questioning about, though? Because, like, which vote in particular?
Do you have it? I didn't print that copy.
As I recall, Vanessa voted no for the school board officers.
Correct.
And Jared abstained, so I agree with the minutes.
I also agree with the minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was noted in the minutes that, for example, Jared abstained from that vote. So that was noted, and the person or persons who voted no were in parentheses. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor?
And new members, feel free to abstain if you wanted to, since you weren't at the last meeting. That's okay to do that. So I saw that not everybody voted, so, okay.
Great.
Tommy, were you abstaining too?
Yeah,
okay.
I was.
Great. So the next on the agenda is public comment. I welcome any members of the community here to come to the podium. Thank you. Please say your name and the community that you reside in. Thank you.
Bob Vale, Cumberland Center, Cumberland Town Council.
please give me the time that I need to make my remarks. Town Manager Bill Shane is on vacation this week. He asked me to come down here and speak with you regarding the vote. I know that's on your agenda for this evening for scheduling a vote, and I think that there should be in your packets his letter regarding the timing of that. And so, given that you have a letter, I'm here just to reiterate that we urge you to put the vote to the public at a regular scheduled voting date. If for no other reason, it's cost savings. Second reason is absentee ballots. We would like you to conform with that if you can. Couple other things that I'd like to bring up. I had a whole litany of things that I was going through in my mind today, and too much time in the sun has addled my brain. I'd like to welcome the new members. I'd like to urge all the new members to get on the Finance Committee. If you haven't already, it's probably one of the most important things you'll do as a school board member is to understand school finance and how that affects, and particularly construction finances. These are very important issues, and everybody needs to get up to speed on that. So if you haven't put your hand up for Finance Committee, please do. We had a meeting with the town council here last week, and we talked about what the issues were before the town. And the number one issue is the school, and specifically the proposed new construction and the tax implications of what that will mean to Cumberland and by all means North Yarmouth also. So part of the discussion that we had was, what can we do to mitigate that? And the conversation quickly revolved right down to, can we have a zero budget for 5 years? That's a big ask for a small community with a small budget, but that is a consideration, and it's not to be taken lightly that that's the direction that we will be headed in, and those are the discussions that we'll be having. My wife likes to claim or talk about the three silos: North Yarmouth, Cumberland, and the school board. And sometimes we think of them as just separate entities, and that in some regards this is treated as a private academy. Well, it's not. It's part of two communities. When I was chair, I initiated what I call FaceTime with the chair and the vice chair of the school board, the Cumberland Town Council, and the North Yarmouth Select Board. I can tell you that we did not accomplish anything, but we did have coffee every Friday morning, and that FaceTime was invaluable because we got to know each other. We got to talk about what was going on, our families, and if nothing else, that kind of ability to meet and greet and get to know people is so valuable. So I would ask that you folks spread yourselves out and pick a town councilor, pick a North Yarmouth select person, and spend time with them, because as we work together on a lot of different issues, that understanding, that friendship is so important. Going back to the budgetary concerns, we're going to ask you directly, to look at your operating budget for the next 5 years. Can you hold it to zero? Probably not. But can you sit down and consider that and have that discussion of what that might look like? The implications of a $75 to $100 million school is huge to these two communities and the costs therein. That 5-year prognosis is not a bright spot. If we look at our property values and compare them to 15 years ago when they stagnated, people that have a home and have their kids in the school system, they can take and capitalize on that increase in valuation, and at the end of their duration with their children going through the school system, they have the opportunity to cash out at a considerable gain over what they did when they bought it. So we're looking at a revaluation, and we keep postponing it because valuations are going up 15% every 6 months. And so any valuation that the town may do really has no value in a year's time. We look back at our demographics, and we're looking at what's changing in our community. It's not the new construction so much as it is the turnover rate. People are moving in, a family moves out and a new family moves in. On some level, that's expectations, because that's healthy too. We're looking at adding some affordable housing, some workforce housing, some elderly housing, and all those things affect our community. Some of them affect the schools, some of them do not. But I guess what I'm really here to say tonight is that we have to have dialogue. We have to have regular dialogue, and it can be one-on-one, and I think that's important too. But I think group dialogue, group discussions of the challenges in front of us and how we approach them, how do we manage them, importantly, is what will make this a successful building project.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Scott Jordan, Cumberland. First of all, congratulations to the folks that just were elected. Madam Chair, I have some documents I'd like to provide to the board, if it's okay, so you can reference, or Superintendent Porter.
Okay.
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 Yeah, you want me to get them?
Sure. And I do see that there's a lot of people in the audience. I would like just maybe to ask, I think we typically do 3 minutes. Is that?
I think we should go longer. That was a lot longer than 3 minutes.
Yeah, and thank you.
Thank you. If I can have 5, no more than 5.
I think we have a lot on our agenda tonight.
Ma'am, I hear you loud and clear, but that was far more than 3 minutes. I think you would agree.
Thank you.
So is that a yes or no?
I think we've typically, what's been typical?
3 minutes.
But that was because of COVID. We're no longer in COVID.
This is the only time we have to do board business, and so I appreciate everyone here tonight, and I want to give the opportunity for people to speak if they're here to speak.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
The current education system in our country, our state, and our community is completely upside down. I assume many can appreciate that, where school prayer is banned, but pornography and drag shows are absolutely allowed. You can't teach the Bible, but you can teach children that men can get pregnant and that kindergartners are allowed to pick their gender. While this administration might think that the district knows what's best for our children, I can tell you they don't. But do you know who knows what's best for our children? The parents. Can somebody please explain to me how this district is able to push pornographic books such as Gender Queer, which I provided pictures for, and indoctrinate our children into a particular lifestyle while they're still discovering life and who they are and how this is acceptable by our administration? Why are these sexually explicit books being pushed about this particular lifestyle? Our district needs to explain what educational value these types of books hold and why it's so important for our school district to defend it or even want these books in our schools. What organization within this administration is pushing this hypersexualization onto our children? Our district's children deserve just to be children, and the school's focus needs to be on the core academics: math, reading, science, not gender, not sexual identity, and not race. Has the MSAD 51 administration even taken into consideration that exposure to sexually explicit materials may lead a child to normalize and become desensitized to high-risk behaviors? Shaping a child's expectation in relationships, blurring boundaries, and increasing a child's risk of victimization. Once their innocence is lost, it can't be regained. For children without an understanding of a healthy sexuality, exposure to pornographic material, such as provided, especially violent pornography, incest, and rape, can be extremely traumatic. Asking children how they sexually identify, what their pronouns are, providing, referencing, and displaying sexual and explicit materials can and is harassment, sexual harassment, especially if it's offensive to one. Creating safe spaces, displaying flags, posters that only identify the LGBTQ students and excluding students who don't identify as such is discriminatory and exclusive. Our district's inclusive and equity policies and materials are placing one protected class over another and is excluding protected classes, which is a direct violation of the Maine Human Rights Act. which we are all equal under God and the law. This district's decisions impact the health and well-being of our community students, which can cause irreparable damage to their academic futures. I implore this administration to lead by example and stop this state-sponsored child abuse. In any case, if anyone is confused by my statement, the state of Maine's Department of Education is very clear, with many school districts such as ours promoting things such as child-on-child, oral sex, pedophilia, a grown man grabbing the penis of an adolescent, cartoons of adult women engaging in oral sex, which are in these books that are in our high school library. I haven't found the time if they're in our middle school yet. As for the transgender movement in this country and in this state,
Thank you for your
in this
time.
community, if
I
there's a movement that's
appreciate-
demonic in this transgender movement, there are only two genders, male and
I
female.
appreciate your time,
You can go to the
Scott.
doctor and get cut up. You can go down to the dress
So
shop and get
that's
made up.
3 minutes.
You can go and get drugged up. But at the end of the day, you're just a drugged up, dressed up, made up man or woman. It's time for the grown-ups and men and women of faith in this community to stand up, unafraid, and tell the truth.
Thank you for your time, Scott.
I'm not leaving until one of two things occurs. You either call the police or you tell me the next steps on what you're doing. This community, we're tired of it. What are you doing tonight to remove these books from our libraries?
This is the public comment section of the agenda. We open up.
Bob, you're not a member of this board, Bob. Sorry. I do not acknowledge Bob Vale.
Empty words, and you can request their response, but to ask them to respond in session is out of order.
I do not acknowledge Bob Vale. He is not a board member.
Scott, I will take a look at the materials that you've passed out and those books that you have given the information to the board and find out more information.
Jeff, that's not acceptable. I've done that with you already. Nothing has happened. Those books have been
Well,
in
I'd
our
like to at least
library.
give you a response, Scott, on the specific information you provided.
That's not acceptable, Jeff. That has been up in our middle school. Those black and white photos have been up in our middle school for our 4th and 5th graders to see. They should not be knowing about sexual orientation and gender identity. That should be left up to the parents. I'm not leaving this podium tonight until you either provide me with next steps that are acceptable or the police is called. I've had it, and so have many other folks in this community.
Scott, is this the place you want to do this right now in this meeting?
I've called you, I've emailed you, I've had conversations with you in person, I've done it with the principals, and we get the same thing. Everybody is accepted. We all know we're accepted.
Right, but this isn't
Pushing
really the
books.
forum, Scott, for
You're
this.
pushing the books on our children. You're telling our junior high school students to wear shirts and go out and take a picture, and then they're taking a picture in a rainbow. As a rainbow. That's unacceptable, Jeff. You guys won't do anything about it. If I was to leave right now, you're not going to do anything about this. You haven't for 2 years. I'm willing to pay the sacrifice for others because you won't do anything about it, and we know it because we're the silent majority in this community. But if I can save one child from what's going on, I've done my job, and
So-
I'm okay with that.
This is the meeting which we are to do our public business. We have some really important things on the agenda tonight.
And our kids are not? This is far more important than a new school.
Would anyone like to motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Why do you want to adjourn? Why do you want to adjourn? I would concur with Mr. Vale. You're out of order, and we have other people and other concerns. Thank you for talking.
How do you know that their concerns aren't the same as mine? Do you know that?
Guess we ought to give them opportunity, right?
Yeah, and as
So
soon as
have a
you
seat.
address my concern, then I will leave.
Why don't you allow them to offer their public comment?
Ann, thank you. I appreciate that. You are one of the bigger advocates for this movement in this district. You will do nothing to support our children. You will do the opposite. I'm asking for you guys to meet us in the middle and talk about this. Move the books out. Review the books. Take them out of the library and look at them. Has anybody on this board looked at genderqueer one time?
I have.
And you're okay with oral sex? You're okay with anal sex?
It's your interpretation of it.
No,
We have
it's
a
not
meeting
just
here.
mine.
We hear from
I
other
move to adjourn
individuals.
this meeting.
Second.
Would anyone like
I will sit down.
Second.
I will sit
Second.
down. I will sit down and let others speak.
We have a motion and a second.
Yep.
All in favor of adjourning tonight's meeting?
We'll be back. Doesn't matter.
and we'll be larger in numbers.
And you better have the police here.
Not for what you think, not for violence, because we're not about violence. But we're tired. These are our children, not your children. Your children might come here. You can look like that. My son is not your son. Her son is not your son.
I'd like to call for a vote to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I second that again.
Okay.
Because you don't
All in favor?
to say, excuse me, you don't want to hear what the public has to say about this very
That's a majority of the board? Does that mean?
So
we can
that's
adjourn?
what the board is going to do.
Meeting's
They're going to
adjourned.
run
Meeting's
away
adjourned.
because somebody's pushing back.